You want music fans to hear your music, love it, and stick with you for life. But that doesn't happen automatically. It takes marketing, not just marketing, good marketing. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about that. It's Music Marketing 101, Part 1. Lots to dive into. So let's get to it.
You're listening
to the CD Baby
CD Baby
DIY
Musician Podcast.
Welcome to episode number 303 of the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast, where on today's episode, we're going to be talking about Music Marketing 101. And it's a two-parter. So this is part one. And even if you've been marketing music for a while, I guarantee you there's going to be things for you to learn and think about and how you approach marketing your music to the music fans all around the world. My name is Kevin Bruner. Joining me is Chris Robley. Chris, how are you doing? All the way from Kansas City.
Yeah, well, I realized we're swapping because last week you were in a hotel in Nashville, right? Now I'm in a hotel in Kansas City. I'm here for Folk Alliance International, which is an amazing folk singer-songwriter, country, bluegrass, whatever, traditional music from all around the world conference where Christina and I from CD Baby we're here for about 4 days to rep CD Baby and lead some workshops. And I have a blast. I'd say for all the things I do at work, this is one of my favorite things I do every year. I suppose topped only by our own conference, which is happening in Austin this summer.
Yes, our conference is happening. I'm wearing a shirt. Let me see.
Whoa, look at that. It's like a product placement. Kevin's holding
there you go.
It's
the t-shirt from 2019, the last DIY Musician Conference. And right now tickets are $149, but you can get yours for free. Yes, free. Just go to DIYmusiciancon.com and book your hotel room. You're going to want to stay in the hotel. And if you stay at least 2 nights, your conference ticket is free. And it's a great price on the hotel. It's a very nice hotel, but it's an amazing hub. What they've created, especially in the lobby, is an amazing hub. And so you're going to want to be there August 26th through 28th, DIYmusiciancon.com. Can't wait to see you. I loved being at a conference last week, and I wish I could be at Folk Alliance with you right now, Chris, because that is an amazing conference.
It's so good to just be with musicians all hanging out. So
it got moved from its original date, and I was going to go originally, but I was at a conference last week. I couldn't do, and I'm at another one coming up. I couldn't do 3 in a row, but I know you're going to have a great time.
Didn't you speak at a conference though?
Yes, this week, just yesterday, Indie Week put on an Indie 101 conference. And I had a session yesterday. And you know what? One thing that was interesting that's worth noting is I was putting it together, and you and I at the same time were also planning a future episode of the podcast and really talking about video. And we've talked video in the past, but we haven't done a video-centric episode in a while. But I was noticing in my session how much video has become so important to releasing music now in new ways than we've maybe haven't really connected the dots yet. And it's going to keep becoming more and more important. So we've got a great episode of the podcast coming up. But at the same time, breaking this just in, if you distribute music through CD Baby now through June 10th, you get a free credit to make a music video through Rotor, our partner at Rotor Videos. And
that's right. Yeah. And that's
a really cool tool.
You can distribute a single or an album with us, and I think you get the free music video credit.
Yeah, and that's the tool that I've been using. And in the session I was putting together for yesterday, I'm like, this is kind of turning into an ad for Rotor because I love that tool for making videos. It's great for making Spotify Canvas videos or videos for marketing campaigns or longer form videos. Such a great tool.
And that free credit, you can choose any format. You can make a Canvas, you could do an art track, you could do a full-length music video, sort of just however you need to use it. It's up to you.
Yeah, and all these things are becoming very integral in the music release process and promoting yourself. So if you've got songs that you want to distribute, head over to cdbaby.com. And now till June 10th, you'll get a free credit for everything you distribute. So check that out. Speaking of some podcast housekeeping items, I just want to remind you to make sure you've hit that subscribe button, especially those of you watching on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. A thumbs up would be appreciated. A share would even cement the relationship even further. The podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, every place you listen to podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed. Lots of great episodes. I feel like we've been on a roll lately. The Adam Ezra one, been getting so many great comments about the cover song episode. We've been getting some good feedback about. I know on the YouTube channel, there was a lot of comments on that one. And even
one
the
in
person,
particular.
even the comment of the person saying, no, I will not sacrifice my musical genius to do cover songs. I said they're out there. I wasn't lying. But
Did he leave that comment on the segment where you said, don't worry, you're not sacrificing your musical genius?
I can't remember. I think it was
perfect.
I think it was on the 7 reasons why you should be doing cover songs. But in this episode today, we're going to be talking about music marketing. It's something that we're always talking about. We talk about various aspects of it. But we were talking and thought it would be great to bring it back to some foundational concepts, because even as a professional marketer, as Chris and myself are, it's important sometimes to return to those foundational concepts and reorient yourself every once in a while and remind yourself of the things that really matter when it comes to marketing. But before we get to that, we have a sponsor for this episode of the podcast, and they're going to help you market your music better. This episode is brought to you by Koji. Check them out at koji.to/@koji_DIY_musician. We've got it on the screen there for you if you're listening on YouTube. That's koji.to/@koji_DIY_musician, the @ symbol. And these guys are going to help you supercharge your link in bio. We've all been held captive by social platforms and other places where we can only post one link, and that link has to do so much heavy lifting for us. And that's what Koji does for you. It allows you to link one place from your profile, and this isn't a lame link tree. We're all at the mercy of social platforms who only allow us to link to one place from our profile, which creates a lot of complexity when it comes to getting your fans directly connected to your music. It also makes it hard to funnel your fans to the right places where you, the artist, get to own the relationship with your fans and not that platform. Not only is Koji this elegant, fully customizable solution for the link in bio, but it's got hundreds of mini apps. And these mini apps are really cool. They add flexibility to it where you can add a tip jar, embed a YouTube video. You can do some fun interactive things like an Ask Me Anything. It's time to supercharge your link in bio. And you can do that. Head on over to koji.to/@koji_DIY_musician. That's koji.to/@koji_DIY_musician. And it's all free. So check it out. And we're very thankful for their sponsorship of this podcast. And I think it's a perfect fit for what we're discussing today. So, Chris, let's get into just some basic concepts like what is marketing? Because I think some people are probably rolling their eyes like, what is marketing? Come on, guys. But when you think about it, I think this word gets used in a lot of ways, in a lot of places that don't always mean the same thing.
Oh, that's completely true. I mean, I think marketing can be used to mean branding, advertising, just posting something on social and expecting someone to care, probably 20 other things. But I wanted to start off by saying, when I was a stupid, naive kid and first trying to make music and expected anyone to care about, I thought marketing is so gross. It is this disgusting act of manipulation. People should just hear my music and love it or not, and they can take it or leave it. I'm not going to go out of my way to try to describe it or make anyone care. It's like, it's the music and nothing else. And I had these 2 friends, Amy and David, who were like, you're young and you're an idiot. No one is going to care about your music unless you make them care. And you have to make them care in a way that has nothing to do with them actually hearing the music. Because if they finally get to the point of hearing the music, then the music can speak for itself. But there's 100 miles to travel between them not knowing you and them finally listening. And those 100 miles have to be traveled by marketing, which is just, I think, the act of telling a story. And when I finally realized this, I thought, oh, it's not gross. It can be something that's authentic. It can be creative. It can actually be really fun if you think of it as just an extension of your artistry. And essentially what we're doing is just talking about ourselves in a way that hopefully makes an emotional connection with an intended audience, and not just makes a connection, but that there's a plan to make that connection mean something in the form of, hey, I need you to do something for me now. And that could be 100 different things. But once I realized it's an extension of my music and can be authentic and not like a car salesman, I was like, oh, like my whole world shifted. I mean, I'm a marketer for CD Baby, but I also started to have a ton of fun marketing my own music. So thanks to Amy and David for calling me out on my naive crap.
Yeah, I think that you summed up, I think at its essence, that it's storytelling. You're trying to tell a story because you want people to care. Yes, we are all victims of a constant barrage of people yelling at us with marketing slogans or calls to action to do certain things that they're just hitting us over the head, stuff we don't care about, stuff we didn't want to see or hear messages from various people. It's just like they're just in our lives because of the way media works and the way life works these days. And oftentimes I think artists think, I don't want to be that person. Well, first off, don't be that person because that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
But the problem is a lot of artists do become that, and that's not good marketing either. So the storytelling concept, I think, is really important because I think in so much of what we talk about, whether we've done deep dives in advertising or marketing funnels and various things, it's like ultimately what you're trying to do is tell people a story that they'll care about so they come along for the ride.
Yeah. And one comment for anyone who is resistant to marketing or to having to try to do marketing for their own music, like I was, it doesn't matter if you're excited about it or not. It doesn't matter if you think you can do a good job or not. You have to do it. Like literally no one will care unless you do. You could even be an accidentally great marketer for your music. I'm not saying it all needs to be pre-scripted, but if you have to have a mercenary attitude about it and just do it begrudgingly because you have to, fine, do it with a grudge, but do it. Because if you don't, like, don't you want people to hear your music? That's like the most basic question. If the answer is yes, then get over every other objection you have that might be from a sense of entitlement or, you know, any of that stuff. Just get over it and do it because you have to.
Yeah, some couple things in that session I mentioned I did for Indie Week. A couple things I shared yesterday was that Spotify says they get 60,000 new tracks a day. That's a whole lot of music. And then the next slide after that I showed, it's like, but you're not competing just against that. You're competing against everything, like Netflix, streaming services like that, gaming,
Political
platforms like
outrage,
political outrage,
dog photos,
doom scrolling,
everything on the internet is your
yes,
competition.
everything. And in 2020, they said that we reached peak attention. And there's been some headlines recently, especially in like the digital space relating to what's happening at Netflix and just in entertainment in general, saying that there's now an attention recession, meaning that people are starting to like, I need to take a break from this stuff. So you're competing with all of that. So the idea that your music is just going to randomly pop into people's lives in the world we live in is just not, it's just not going to happen. Sure, maybe a couple people might randomly find it, but we're not here to just hope and pray that someone randomly finds our music. We're trying to do things to grow an audience and build a career around the music that we make and hope that people love it. So they have to know about it and we need to tell them about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so we've been using the metaphor of like storytelling, and I think it's worth pointing out that yes, marketing is an act of storytelling. You want people to take notice, be interested enough to turn to the next page. You want enough people to get to the end of the story that, you know, your career gets to the next level, or you have enough money to make your next album or whatever it is. You also have to know who's on that journey, and you have to notice when people fall off and stop reading the book, and you want to know who gets to the end. That might sound daunting. There's a lot of ways you could be telling that story. It could be through organic posts, paid advertising, you know, the things you choose to say and do at a club during a gig. There's a lot of ways to tell a story. But if all that sounds daunting, just remember, don't tell the whole story at once.
Yes.
No one like no author drops the book into someone's brain and they have ingest 400 pages of a novel all at once. So marketing is really like little puzzle pieces, little bits of the story, a paragraph or a page at a time. And you can, I think, write the story as you go. It doesn't need to be all pre-scripted. But if you kind of have a sense of the direction, then maybe your marketing campaigns will have more of a shape to it, might be easier to execute. But I just think it's worth reminding people you don't have to tell the whole story at once.
Yeah, and you said a couple things there that I really wanted to highlight. One, you said it could be organic, just in case you don't know, because organic, that can kind of be a marketing lingo term. That just means you posted something or you did something and it traveled without having to pay for it. So social posts that you make that lots of people like, that would be considered organic, where a Facebook ad, that is paid. Marketing people will always like look at traffic sources to websites and things. They'll see how much is organic, like how many people are just naturally searching for what you do compared to how many people are responding to an ad, or it's a combination of those things oftentimes. But you also mentioned it could happen in a club. And I like that that's on the list because this is my biggest freaking pet peeve with musicians. I get so frustrated when I go to a show and the band, one, refuses to even really look or acknowledge that the audience is there, and they're probably backstage complaining that not enough people were there. I'm like, well, you treated us like crap that we're here, we're there, so why do you expect more people to come? They don't talk to the audience, but my big pet peeve is they don't say their name. And I've actually, when Chris, when you used to live in Portland, we were playing the Portland scene. My band Hello Morning was, we were in similar circles. It just drove me crazy to see bands like, I talked to bands and they were like, no, I refuse. I don't do that. And I'm like, that is just stupid. So marketing can be just about how you carry yourself and present yourself and interact with people. I think that was one of the great things about the Adam Ezra episode, because you can tell that he's so personable with his fans that the way he interacts with them, it's a form of marketing. It's a form of getting people interested in what you're doing. If you look disinterested and aloof, that's not going to attract people.
Well, and that's a good example. He is doing marketing, but I bet to the people that are in his audience, that probably just feels like he's inviting them to a party. It doesn't strike them as marketing because it's probably so natural and enthusiastic, and they have a feeling. He's created a connection. He's created a feeling in them. And I think, to go back to, I think the two things good marketing needs to have, it needs to create a connection and a feeling. And that could be excitement, curiosity, disgust, just some strong feeling. But then the other thing it has to have is they need to know what to do with that feeling, whether that's click this link, sign up for my email list, buy the CD, come to my party, whatever it is. It's like, create the connection, create a feeling, and then have a clear signal about what they're supposed to do.
And I think the feeling is important because, we see artists post links like new single out, go get it here now. And sometimes you just need to be direct like that. I don't want to say that that's always wrong, or go buy my music. No, that's always wrong. Just that abrupt and out of nowhere, go buy my music. But the idea that there's no emotional connection. So that's where I think and we'll get more into part 2 of this episode, where we talk about some more specific things about marketing, but like that emotional connection or emotional feeling. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about your song, but it's just in the message. If you can elicit some sort of emotion in the person, it'll make them want to click or get interested. And also, like you said, they've got to know what you want them to do, though. Because I think sometimes artists get very creative creating things, but then after someone sees it, like a creative message, they don't know what they're supposed to do. Or the artist wants them to do too many things at once, and it just becomes confusing.
Yeah.
We've got some music marketing essentials that we think are foundational to definitely taking your marketing from maybe feeling like I'm just randomly blasting stuff out to the world and it seems like nobody cares, to actually giving it some purpose and direction. And the first section we have here is setting goals.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that one of the most obvious places to begin is, who do you want to reach? Who do you think's going to like your music? Why? You can't just be like, I made this song, let me put it out and expect the entire world to fall in love with me. Like, too wide, too unspecific. You have to have a sense of where to start. Even if later you're proven wrong about who your target audience is, you got to kind of start from somewhere.
Yeah. And this one always cracks me up. And I'm guilty of it. I'm going to reach the whole world with my music because the whole world will obviously love what I do.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Wrong. Even if that were true, the whole world is too big for you to target them all at once effectively. So you don't want to reach everybody. If you're saying everybody's my target, you're not doing it right. You got to be honest, have some honest conversations here with yourself. You really need to go, who are your fans? Are they fans of a certain genre? Are they in a specific location, city or country? Are they older? Are they younger? Some of you really need to get honest with yourselves in these areas. Everyone, I want the young hip kid. That may not be your audience for many reasons, and some of them very good reasons. Do they like CDs? Are they streaming? Who exactly are they? And if you don't know, your messaging and the other thing that comes next, what do you want them to accomplish, could be all out of whack. So if you know that your fans are younger and don't buy CDs and live in this certain area, that gives you a lot to go on. If your fans are older, they actually prefer CDs or downloads, and they're in these places, that gives you completely different messaging and things that you may want them to do once they see your message. And so that's so important.
I think there's a way, if you answer both of those questions separately, who do you want to reach and what do you want to accomplish? So now let's say and what you want to accomplish could be a very big thing. Like, I want a total stranger to hear this music, to go through some sort of experience where they become a deeper fan of it, and then they buy a t-shirt. Like, that's a pretty big ask, but it's possible to script a kind of marketing campaign to achieve that. Or it could be something simple. I want a stranger to see a 15-second TikTok video they've never seen and to like it or comment. Like, both perfectly reasonable goals, but who do you want to reach? What do you want to accomplish? And if you answer both of them, then there's like a Venn diagram or something to see if those things exist together. Like,
yeah,
is it real? You basically said it with the younger people buying CDs. If you want to reach younger people and your primary goal is to sell CDs, though, that might not be the best combination of those answers. So yeah, the answers to each kind of vet one another, or at least you should be vetting how they coexist.
And it's important to note that these things can change over time, and they can also be different for each kind of campaign or thing that you may be doing. You may have a tour or some shows that you're trying to market. If your fan base spans a wide spectrum, there may be segments of your fan base that are more apt to come to a show than others. So the idea of like, who do you want to reach, and what do you want to accomplish? Now, on the what do you want to accomplish, I think it's important for artists to have some short-term goals and then maybe some more aspirational, bigger career goals. But if the only thing you're working from for the what do you want to accomplish is I want to star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, that's what I want to accomplish. It's like, well, there's a lot of things in between there that doesn't help you much. It doesn't help you sort of narrowed in on what actions are going to get you to where you want to be. For example, for a time, what I really wanted to accomplish was to get music in film and TV, just to get some sync placements rolling. I had that band here in Portland called Hello Morning, and that project really was, we came together around sort of that idea. We ended up playing shows and stuff, but at one point we finished the record and it was said, well, what do we do? Well, I guess we play some shows, it was said. I'm like, well, that's not what we said we wanted to accomplish. We said we wanted to get sync placement. So if that's what we want to do, that's totally different activity that we should be spending our time doing than just booking random shows and playing for whatever reason.
Well, that's a good point, because any goal that you set is going to take a lot of resources, whether it's money or time. And if you guys wanted to start by getting sync placements and now you're distracted by a whole other endeavor of booking shows, rehearsing, playing, that's a different grind. And now you're, unfocused from your primary goal.
And it's especially problematic when it comes to marketing and messaging. And especially with artists having finite budgets, you don't want to blow all the money you have to market your release because you're trying to target the whole world. You're going to be getting your message in front of a lot of people that may not care about what you're doing. You want to find the right audience and target them and make sure that what you're asking them to do is in line with what you want to see happen and that will help you keep your career moving forward.
One last thing I was going to say, when you mentioned like the worst thing you can do is just have this sort of really dreamlike aspirational goal, like I want to be famous. Well, like, sure, that sounds like a perfectly reasonable 10-year plan, but people who make business plans, it's like, here's my 5-year plan, here's my 1 year, here's what I'm going to do in the next 6 months. Here's what I'm going to do today and tomorrow and the next day to build towards that. And maybe it starts with the huge aspirational goal, but then they reverse engineer it with a lot of specific goals.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, I want you to, you can push pause. You don't have to push pause, but you could. And I want you to go write down, who do you want to reach? Like, who would be the right target audience for you to reach with whatever you've got going on right now? If you have a new single, new album, if you got a tour to promote, if you've got some videos you're releasing, or you just are trying to get more activity around your catalog, write down who do you want to reach and what you want to accomplish. So it might start with what do you want to accomplish, then who do you think is the right audience to reach for that? And then really start thinking about what is the message that's going to resonate. And I like you mentioned like a Venn diagram, Chris, because I think oftentimes it's like, here's the audience I'm trying to reach, here's what I want them to do, and there's just no overlap.
Right.
Like I'm telling all these people that will never leave their home to go see me on tour, or I'm on tour like Small Town Poets. We're doing some shows in the South coming up this summer. I do not need to tell our fans in Latin America, which we do have quite a few, I do not need to tell them that we're playing shows in Charlotte and Florida, and they're not going to be there.
Yeah.
So that's oftentimes how we do these things. And when you do that, it just wears down your audience because then they start tuning you out.
Another aspect of good marketing is the right message for the right person. It's not every message to every person in your audience. So we'll probably talk about that in part 2. But
yes. All right. What you need to know before you start, there's your budget, your timeline, your audience we talked about, and your goal we talked about. Those are all very important for you to understand and make sure your marketing is effective, because the budget could drastically change all of the others, because you might have a very ambitious goal, but a good reach goal, something that's going to push you. But then when you see what your budget is, it's like, that's just too much. You're not going to be able to use that money effectively to try and go after that big goal. So it really can be a determining factor about what you can and can't do.
Well, right. The conditional questions or the Venn diagram starts getting more complicated. It's not only, is this intended audience likely to help me achieve this goal? Now it's, will these people help me achieve this goal given the time and money I have? Which the answer sometimes might be no, in which case set a more humble goal, I suppose. And
timeline's important as well, because we see our artists so often, and it'd be Thursday afternoon, can you get my song live by tomorrow morning? I'm like, I probably could, but I'm not going to. But
you're enabling bad habits if you did.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. But the other thing is that person could have tons of money to spend to promote that release, but the timeline's too short. And the opposite can be true, that you have this long timeline. Hey, I just want to have these ads running for a month, but I've only got $20. Well, $20 is not enough to really do anything over a month span of time. So the timeline and budget, it's kind of these things that as they move, they can impact what you can and can't do effectively.
Well, I've heard you describe these 4 things: budget, timeline, audiences, and goals, like faders on a mixing board, where like if anyone's ever mixed their own music in front of a board, oh, I think the drums need to kick a little more. So you like turn them up or you tweak the EQ on the drums, and suddenly you're like, ooh, that's cool. But now suddenly something else is off balance. So you have to turn that up or down accordingly. So it's like any adjustment to one affects the whole, and then you have to constantly adjust. And if you only have $100, then maybe trying to reach 10,000 people is not correct. And maybe instead you say, okay, I think I can only reach 1,000 people or whatever, 500 people for that $100. Or if you've got a year, great. Then your budget can be adjusted. You don't have to drop $20,000 in a week. You can stretch your goal over a long time.
Yeah.
Or stretch your budget rather. So yeah, I like that metaphor of kind of mixing music.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes when I talk to artists and they're frustrated about the results they're getting from their music marketing, oftentimes some of these are really, really out of whack and their expectations are out of whack. Because, let's be honest, when it comes to marketing, we could do a lot of great things, get a lot of people motivated, and they may still not have heard the music. The music should be good when they finally get to it, but you can be a successful marketer and get people to music that's mediocre. Then the music has to stand up, and whether or not they stick around and become fans and follow you, that's a whole nother story. But
and then all you're doing as a good marketer is conditioning people to feel betrayed and less trusting of the next marketing campaign they encounter.
Hey, it's all subjective, so who am I to say?
Yeah. Well, one other thing I wanted to say about considering the 4 different things: budget, timeline, audience, and goals. It helps if you have a pretty clear idea of what is realistic, but you don't need to have all the answers. And I think it's perfectly fine to consult other bands or other artists or marketing consultants, anyone in the industry who might have more expertise than you, and say, does this sound realistic? Does it sound worth doing? What should I tweak before I even launch the thing? That's fine. The other thing you can do is launch a marketing campaign and just see what happens. Like, you don't want to blow your whole budget on something that fails, but it's okay to allocate a little bit of your budget to testing, see how it goes. If it works, great. Put more fuel in the fire. And if not, you can tweak from there. So I don't want to make it sound like everyone has to have all the answers before they start.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something that should be a part of the mix. Like, save some money to just test ideas, test something wacky. When we have limited budgets, we're always trying to play it safe. At least that becomes the tendency. Make sure you get the most out of it. So I'm going to play it safe. But sometimes some wacky, crazy idea is going to be the one that works. And so you want to leave some money to test that.
Especially if that wacky idea feels very true to you. If that's like something that's very in line with your music, your aesthetic, whatever, like that's going to perform better probably than the safe play because it's true.
Yeah, exactly. In part 2 of this, we're going to dive into some specifics, but choosing the best tools to align results is another thing that we wanted to highlight. And I think this is another thing where artists, in fact, I got a question about this in the session I did yesterday at the Indie Week conference, was about some tools and like, is this tool the right thing to accomplish this? So I think that's the right question to be asking. There's a lot of tools out there. The session I was on at Music Biz was similar. It was like something about choosing the right tools for the job, because there's so many things out there being pitched to us, and it's easy to sort of get in tool selection paralysis or spend all your time learning these tools and realizing I don't really need this, or this isn't actually doing what I need it to do.
Or fooling yourself that simply having the tool will answer your, solve your problems.
Correct.
That's the thing I have gotten. I'm so, if I just do this extra complicated, cool thing, like I'm just going to make tens of thousands of new fans. Like, no, it might make some aspect of the marketing easier, but in some ways, sometimes it can be a time suck and a time waste to adopt too many tools. But I think you said in part 2, we'll talk more specifically about how to use these tools, but should we list some basics?
Yeah, just list them off real quick and then we'll move on. That's some of the things that we will dive into more next time, but that just worth thinking about.
Yeah, well, I think it's super crucial to have a website for a lot of reasons, but when it comes to marketing, you can use a website to have a squeeze page or an announcement bar, a pop-up, things that help you get this priority message to anyone who's showing up on your site. You'll want to have an email list, potentially a SMS list, so you can reach people that have already proven to be the most interested in your music. A smart link tool like Koji that Kevin talked about earlier can really do a lot of heavy lifting on social for you. CD Baby has a suite of marketing tools called Show.co, which can be a really great way to help you build your Spotify following and do like a YouTube video premiere. There's a lot of other ways you can use it. Doing ads on paid platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, YouTube is a really powerful marketing tactic strategy. Speaking of Show.co, we also have something called Ad Builder, which is a tool that helps you get your ads onto music websites like Pitchfork and Billboard, these very targeted sites where the most enthusiastic, dedicated music fans are already visiting. So those are some of the basics.
That's a good list. I think that list covers the essentials. There's a lot of other stuff out there. Things you don't need. You don't need Baby Yoda meme generators. Those could be fun for a day, but those aren't those things aren't
I
essential.
need that.
But the website, definitely something that gets underutilized in today's world. We've sort of put a lot of our storytelling onto social, and that's how we kind of used websites before that. But really, you should look at your artist website as your marketing engine, or a key pillar in your marketing engine, especially as it comes to getting fans to take specific actions, whether email list or buying stuff. You have control there. You can own the relationship there. So that's something that's critical. Love my Bandzoogle website. It's great. But yeah, those are some essentials. We'll dive into some more strategies in the next episode. But Chris, I'm excited about this next section because I don't think that we've ever really put a section together like this. It's called What to Expect When You Market Your Music. And so what should you expect when you market your music? Oh, there's lots of things you should expect, but some of these things never get talked about, and some of them are hard.
The answer is not to expect guaranteed success and certain fame.
Oh, man. What am I doing this for then? But you've got a list here that I think is a great list about what to expect when you market your music. And why don't you read down the list and we're going to talk through it.
Yeah. So the first thing to expect is a whole lot of indifference and rejection, because it's math. It's a process of winnowing. When you market your music, you got to go into it knowing most people will not like you or just simply not care. So you're going to have to just deal with rejection in order to find that group of diehard fans. And in order to find them, you have to put yourself out there. What that also means is you need to expect that you're going to have to develop thick skin, and you have to have a plan to deal with negativity, whether that is to delete comments, to just ignore them, or to sort of have a funny, lighthearted way of responding to them. Whatever it is, whatever works for you, kind of think about that in advance. The third thing, and this is really important, and I think something that a lot of artists get really pissed about, is you have to spend money in order to make money. It's just a fact of business. Most new businesses intend to lose money, or at least lose on the marketing side of things, to build up their startup costs, their initial group of customers. So you will have to spend money. Another thing to expect with marketing, it's a ton of work and a lot of analysis. This is not a set it and forget it type thing. When you do a marketing campaign, it has to be managed, it has to be optimized. So if you've got a day job, or if you're spending a lot of your time gigging, then this might mean a lot of extra late nights or early mornings to do the marketing side of this. Another thing you should expect is for your assumptions to be challenged. So you will need to stay flexible. You might have a really clear idea of who your target audience is, and you might be totally wrong. Your ads might perform really well with some group that you didn't expect. The same thing could be true of like, oh, I know that this is the hit single for my album, and you lead with that and it flops. And randomly some other song is the hit. Same thing about if you're doing ads for like with video content. It helps to have a few things to test against each other, because the one you assume is going to be the great one might flop. So your assumptions will be challenged. Another really common thing I think that happens is we run marketing campaigns and then we're like, now what? So expect to have the now what feeling. And if you can, have a follow-up plan, because that can help you emotionally just feel like you're not stagnating and plateauing. But it also gives you something very clear to get your audience to do once they've done the first thing. Because again, this is a story, a journey. You want to know the next page. You want to let them know what the next page is as well. I would also expect very frequent changes in algorithmic and ad trends on social platforms. So what works today on TikTok might not work tomorrow. So just stay nimble. Don't assume that just because you're having success now, you can just do the same thing forever. When you're running ads, expect that calls to action will cost you. External links will cost you, because these social platforms don't want anyone to leave their platform. So if you're sending someone to your own website from TikTok or Facebook or whatever, those ads are going to cost you more. They also tend to look more like ads. So that will cost you more, because the platforms want your stuff to appear organic. The last thing I want to mention is that niche. The more targeted you get with your audience will cost you. So if you're targeting hard rock fans in Detroit, ages 45 to 65, that's a very expensive audience to target. So the wider your targeting can be in some ways, the better. And the content you're serving them, the more wider it can have an emotional appeal, the more universal it can be, while still being entertaining, of course, the better, because then that content just has more legs. You can reach more people. Yeah, I think those are the things you should think about and expect ahead of time.
I was listening to you thinking, man, it sounds like marketing music is horrible.
Here's 9 things that suck about marketing.
All of it. Actually, no, I love this list. When you wrote it, it really spoke to me, Chris. No, not just because of music marketing, but you and I have been marketing and doing marketing activities for CD Baby for years. And none of this implies that you're not being successful. That's what I liked about this list. It's like these are the things that happen when you market something, and especially in your music, something that you feel connected to and passionate about. Even if you're successful, all these things are going to happen. The indifference and rejection, we're all guilty of getting 100 compliments on our music, and then 2 people say this is total crap, and then you're just that, I'm gonna go find that guy.
They ruin your day.
Yeah,
And all the good stuff is just like in one ear out the other.
Yeah. And so when you put yourself out there, especially with marketing campaigns and marketing your music, because I don't want to attach the word campaign to everything as if it's a paid, like I'm rolling out a campaign, because just social activity and trying to do it with intentionality can be and is marketing. You're gonna have people that are indifferent, and you're like, why don't they get it? Or people that just flat out reject it. And sometimes that really hurts, but it is a math game, like you said. And, email is a good example. If you have an email list and you use it and you look at the data when you send emails to your fans, a 20% open rate is considered stellar by industry standards. That means 20% of the people that got your email actually looked at it. That means 80% of the people didn't. And whether from indifference or it went in their junk mailbox or they are too lazy to unsubscribe, but they don't like you anymore. So 20% people looking at your message
is success.
It's success. That means that there's a lot of indifference and rejection that you're going to have to wade through in order to handle, even when you're successful with your campaigns.
And then how you define success and having realistic expectations around just that one example get even more maybe bleak from a certain novice perspective, because 20% open, and that's success. But then of those, the ones who click the link that says, hey, watch my new YouTube video or whatever, is also 20% would be good at that too. So by the time you winnow, very few people are doing the thing you want them to do.
And that's normal. And yeah, like a 1 to 3% click-through rate, which is what they call it, is amazing. Yeah. And so you're like, wow, why are all these people on my list then? That's the question I ask all the time. but
who are all you?
Who are you? You signed up for this list. I didn't go buy this stuff.
Well, and there is an argument to be, this is more of a thing we probably talk about in part 2, but there is an argument to be made where if someone ignores your stuff that long, you just kick them off your list because it's dead weight. But long-term listeners will probably be sick of this example that I give, but even mega successful artists like Beyonce or Taylor Swift or something like that, when Taylor Swift plays the Enormo Dome in Portland, Oregon, and she sells 30,000 tickets and it's a sellout, 1 million people stayed home. 1 million people didn't care enough to spend the money, leave their house, or have zero connection. 500,000 of those people probably hate Taylor Swift, but she doesn't count any of those people. They don't matter. She winnowed and she won, and she has sold out the Enormo Dome.
Yeah. So the thick skin being very important. And the more you build an audience, the more you're going to have random wackos out of the woodwork show up. And for whatever reason that people have so much free time these days that harassing people online, I guess, is fun for them, but it happens. Or they just say some really rude stuff. The more visible you get with your music and your career, you'll come across those things, and you got to have thick skin. You said spend money to make money. The one thing I would add to that is that spend money or time. I mean, you're gonna need to spend money, really. I mean, because you're spending money to make the music. You're gonna spend money to put together things to really present yourself well. But time is also something you're gonna need to spend, which I think you said work and analysis. And so work, it's not set it and forget it. You're gonna have to work a lot, but
Well, I think a lot of artists, I don't know if this is as true now as maybe it was 10 years ago, but I just heard from so many artists who resent the fact that they're expected to spend money to reach new listeners. And I just like, it's another one of those things that feels very naive and entitled because like the world doesn't owe you listeners. The world doesn't owe you success and riches without you doing what every successful business does, spending startup costs or whatever,
yeah.
customer acquisition costs. So get over that. And I also realize not every artist is in a position where they have money to spend. So that might mean saving, getting a second job, all these things that are very big life decision. I'm not trying to pretend it's easy, but
Yeah.
it is a hurdle you'll have to overcome.
Yeah, money makes marketing a whole lot easier because we're talking about marketing music, having money. There's a lot of artists that have been able to do a lot of great things without much money, but then time is a cost. I think that's
Mhm.
that's the thing that it's going to cost you something. You're not going to make music and just sit there and make one post on social media and have hordes of fans just lining up to click that link.
Well, and with time too, like just the same way that probably you and I are guilty of going into the studio and being like, oh, we've got 3 days in the studio. We can bang out 7 songs totally. And then you get 2 done, if that. Marketing's the same thing. It's like, because it tends to be a bit of the afterthought for musicians who put so much into making the music and maybe even making the content, the video content, whatever. But just the act of going into like, if we're talking about paid ads, going into Facebook Ads Manager and tweaking the buttons and setting up the target, everything takes way longer than you think it will. So we underestimate what it takes to just run a campaign.
Yeah. I like the assumptions. Your assumptions will be challenged. I think goes hand in hand with the analysis piece, especially where we're at with digital platforms. What's working for you on social? Maybe you've got a song that's really, you've done some videos around on TikTok, it's blowing up. May not be the hit on Spotify. Spotify, people might be enjoying different tracks, which could be completely different than what's happening on Amazon Music. That's what I've been seeing with my band. It's quite fascinating. And some of it has to do with each of these platforms having their own algorithms pushing different tracks, or you have a couple tracks that got thrown in a playlist and those ones are performing really well and the ones that people find the most. There's a lot of different things that could be happening, but it's really important to look at data with an open mind and understand that you, the artist, have some very extreme biases about your own music. And if you can look at the data with an open mind, there can be some marketing opportunities that jump out at you because it's about what people are actually doing and not what you think they should be doing.
Yeah, the example I have for myself comes when I was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I put out an album that was pretty electric guitar heavy, at least for me. And I thought, oh, I'll target fans of Muse and Pink Floyd and Elvis Costello even. I had like preconceptions about who would like it. And this was back in the days when Facebook made it pretty easy to do sounds like targeting on Instagram and Facebook. And what really happened after I'd spent enough money to test is like my music performed well with Death Cab for Cutie audiences. And I'm like, I don't think I sound like that. But clearly Facebook, after serving my ad to millions of people, was like, nope, you're wrong about what you think you sound like. Or at least there's enough affinity between my music and that audience. So I like being proven wrong in that way now that I don't have as much ego invested in it.
The changes in algorithmic trends, that also comes into play with that same conversation as well, because something that could be working, like what you're saying, that Death Cab for Cutie example, the algorithm may change and that might not work anymore. Those things are something, that's why it's really important to kind of understand the data and what's happening with what you're doing, whether it's organic posts on social or ads, because these things, these platforms are also always changing how they work. And over time, they might make it something that was hugely successful, really ineffective. Facebook's a good example here. At one point, they made it so basically, if you were a brand, you can have a personal profile or you can have a brand, which could be your business, a band, your music persona. They made it so you basically had to pay to reach your fans. Like they only show it to like 1 or 2% of your followers to see what kind of reaction it gets. And if it gets a good, strong reaction, they'll start opening it up. But it has to get people reacting to it and engaging with your content. Otherwise, most of your people aren't going to see it unless you pay. That didn't used to be the case. And so people over time saw things that were working organically really get choked off. And then recently, Facebook started removing interests that you could target with ads because it apparently was too close to personal identifiable information, PII, that's what they call it.
Interesting.
And some of those seemed pretty generic to me. Like we can no longer at CD Baby target people by the term songwriter. That became, you cannot target people with ads based on them being a songwriter as an interest. So it's weird. It doesn't make any sense, but those things change and it impacts your marketing.
Yeah, and so like it's not exactly like an algorithmic trend shift. That's more just like the available for whatever sort of regulations and laws are being passed, like your available tools are changing. So I couldn't go in and probably say, hey, I did well with Death Cab fans, serve this new ad to Death Cab fans because they've removed that option. So I thought too, when we had Gil on like a month or two ago and he talked about his TikTok success, he was like, I'm under no illusion I can keep doing this forever. It's working now. And a month from now, TikTok could change how they serve stuff and I'll have to try something new. So
yeah, the one thing that you had in here that I thought was great was the now what feeling, because we have run some hugely successful campaigns here at CD Baby over the years where I felt like we dug deep, we did something creative and interesting. We took our marketing expertise to new heights. The campaign was a smashing success. We high-fived all around. And then the next day you wake up going, huh, now what? Like, how do I recreate that? Can I? What
should I?
Should I?
Yeah. And then also like, should we just do that again? It clearly worked.
Yes.
Should we wait 6 months or will people be tired of it? Those are a lot of questions.
And it can happen the same thing for it not being as great as we thought. And I've had this experience both with CD Baby and music on both sides, being something going really well and other things thinking that you think is going to work and it doesn't. And then you're like, wow, now what? I thought I gave it all I had as far as my ideas and creativity. So that feeling and emotion that you have around it is real. And, you know, just acknowledging that you're going to experience that in the highs and the lows, there still might be this, wow, I don't know what to do next because I feel like I just gave it all I had and it worked or it didn't work, but still, what am I supposed to do next?
Yeah, well, if you leave your fans dangling in that way because you're in a now what phase and you have no plan for them and they all fall off a cliff and then a year later you have to spend a lot of energy to get those people back, ultimately that is your fault. It's not their fault. And you've probably suffered from emotional exhaustion, which happens to everyone. Happened to me. Like I spent on my last album, I think I did 3 or 4 singles leading up, and I did like pretty intensive video and marketing stuff for every single single with a bunch of supporting video content, social stuff. And then the album, and it was a month or two of just a lot of grind for that. And then I was like, huh, that album's out. And it's like I forgot about it. Like I'd forgot that I'd put this infrastructure in place that I could have just kept working. But I was so tired. And, you know, I suffered from that thing that artists do of like, what's next creatively? So now my focus is on the next album or whatever, or the next new song instead of keeping the machinery running, which I should have. Like, so anyone who's done that, I'm very guilty of it too. Don't feel bad.
I had that experience after our last album. Frankly, with every release that we've done, whether it be on a label or independently, but especially this past fall, our album came out. We did some stuff around it. We played some shows in the fall. I had a whole bunch of marketing stuff drop, kept it going, and then I just ran out of steam. I was just like, I'm tired and spent creatively and also thinking, now I got to get back in the mode of creating music mode, not marketing mode. And that was what the whole kind of now what feeling was for me after that one. So I think it's important to acknowledge it.
I think even when something's working well, like let's say my campaign was all at that point automated, dialed in, good outcome for what I was putting in money wise, I still lose motivation to keep it going, because when I start thinking about the next thing, inevitably there's shame about the last thing, which is so stupid. Like, I've heard from so many people, they love my last album, but because I'm focused on the next thing, I'm like, I don't really want people to hear the last thing. I want, which is dumb, but we all suffer from it.
And lastly on this list, you mentioned the niche will cost you, like really targeting. I want to draw one distinction between what we said earlier when I was talking about, I want to reach the whole world. Most of what I was talking about up at that part was like, who are you actually trying to craft a message for? Like, who is this story that you're telling for, and identifying that, where when you mentioned getting specific and narrowing audiences down sometimes can be expensive. That was more when it came to actual ad spend, but making sure that people understand that it's important that how those two things interact with each other, because there can be some give and take. It's like understanding that, yeah, I want to reach this exact person. Well, that's going to be expensive, but you need to know who those people are, that you're our ideal fans, because that gives you some place to start. But when it comes to running ads, you're going to experience a whole lot of different things based on the platform you're using, whether it's Facebook ads, whether it's our ad platform at show.co. It's all going to be different. And so you just got to be ready to adjust accordingly. And the kind of campaign you're running, quite frankly, because I mean, it could be something where you're just trying to tap into the person that could be your ideal fan, or you might be trying to go broader, but you know what you're doing. I think it's ultimately comes down to, you got to know what you're doing and who you're going after. And then you can make wise decisions about how to adjust according to that.
Yeah, I just had one comment to add when I said calls to action and external links on social ads will cost you. Earlier, we discussed needing to have a clear goal of what you expect your audience to do. And I think it's perfectly fine if your goal is, I want to run an ad and all I want them to do is like it. I want them to like the video on TikTok or Instagram or something. Your goal doesn't always need to be to drive them off the platform to your website to buy something. Just building your following on the platform you're advertising on is a perfectly fine objective. And it's also probably a more cost-effective objective, because you're asking someone to do something on the platform so the platform doesn't penalize you.
Yeah. And with the understanding that if that's clearly, like, that's a defined goal, I want to build my on-platform audience, that you should understand, if you run campaigns like that, you're not going to open up Spotify for Artists and see like a massive trend line going along with that ad, because no, that was not the goal of the ad or what you were trying to do. You clearly were trying to build an audience on platform. Then maybe the next step is, now that I've got an audience on this platform, I start building connection and then start trying to drive fans to places where I own that relationship. But important things to remember. But yes, you're correct. If you put a link that gets people off platform, your content has to perform really well. If it's an organic piece, it has to perform really well in order for Facebook and Instagram and all those other ones to want to show it. Instagram, I don't know if Instagram stories, if it messes with who sees it when you start linking off platform.
I don't know, but I think anecdotally, I would say yes, because when I share links, way fewer people see those posts.
Yeah.
The stories posts.
Twitter's the one where I don't know if they care, because that whole platform's different. But anyway, all right. Well, that's what you should expect when you market your music. So if you've been marketing your music, if you've had some successful ideas or things to share, we want to hear from you. You can call our listener line at 360-524-2209, or you can email us at podcast@cdbabypodcast.com. And we want to know, are you doing things that are really helping you build an audience? Have you tried some things that have been total failures? This is a safe space. You can share with us. We love hearing mistake stories. We've shared plenty of our own. We love hearing success stories. We just want to hear from you. Chris, Is it just my imagination, or did you get like the penthouse suite there at Folk Alliance?
I did, and here's why. And like, in case anyone thinks I'm like living large all the time, I got a room with one bed. It was, whatever, standard single bedroom. And the woman at the desk when I was checking in yesterday was like, "I'm so sorry, we don't have single bedrooms right now available. Would you take one with 2 queens?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care." And she's like, "Oh, thank you so much. I'll put you in the suite." So I got the big like first class upgrade for something I would not even regard as an inconvenience. So
Wow.
living large.
Wow. That room you're in is like 3 times the size of the average venue there at Folk Alliance.
It is really massive. Let's see. We got the 2 beds there, but then over here, oh, that's my land. Anyways,
you got
won't be a
it's
good tour, but-
big. You gave me the tour,
yeah.
and it's like the party pad. So
Yep.
so
It goes like another 16 feet that way in the opposite direction.
wow. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you have fun at Folk Alliance.
All right.
And that's gonna do it. We'll catch everybody next time.
See you then.